Hi everyone, welcome to JXG Spotlight. Another exciting episode. And today, this particular episode, I had the biggest challenge in finding the intro. It was a tough one, but I had all that mapped in my head. I have a clear picture of my discussion with this gentleman across the table. The basis of my discussion and the discussion guide was based on a scribble note I got maybe about 2 years back. There's a lot of notes in this. So I base my discussion around it. Now, some of the brands in the world, organizations are positioned very, very strong with a certain category. And yes, the company that I work for, the Janashakthi group, we are also known for something and strongly positioned in an area. But there's a lot of untold story and a lot of things that people don't know. And I thought this is the best opportunity based on this scribble note to have this discussion with the gentleman across the table, whom I will introduce in a little while, to uncover this whole mystery behind Janashakthi and JXG. So, to do that honors, I have invited the group managing director CEO, Mr. Ramesh Schaffter, back again to JXG Spotlight. Ramesh, welcome to JXG Spotlight.
Gamika, I'm in all sorts of trouble.
Why
I
did
don't even know what's on that note.
this is actually a discussion you and I had about 2.5 years back, and we scribbled something, and
And
you.
we've only had a million discussions since then.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And one of the questions, Ramesh, I had was when I joined for my second lease in the company, why are you joining insurance again? So my first question is, when you say Janashakti, everybody in Sri Lanka, and I have a recent research report, maybe 99% say Janashakti is insurance. And, a lot of other credentials, credibility, stability, trust, all that association. So associating Janashakti with insurance, is it correct or is it wrong?
It's correct and it's wrong. Because in this particular case, the son was more famous than the father. I mean that in the context of Janashakti Insurance and its parent company, Janashakti Limited. I don't mean it in this case of Ramesh Schaffter as against CTA Schaffter. Not so in this case. Janashakti Insurance started as Janashakti Life, and it started with a bang. It was the only life insurer. It started in a relatively unpenetrated market. It had extraordinary growth. It transformed the market. And in that communication and marketing strategy, they had 90 branches within 1 year. In all of that, it became a household name. The parent was in the background. The parent was always there. And the parent did not need to make a noise because Janashakti Life was making so much noise. A year later, Janashakti General started, and that was equally successful. And so the insurance name became synonymous with Janashakti and Janashakti with insurance. So the fact that the parent actually had other children, other companies, other business units did not even get to the limelight. Those companies may have been individually known, but not known as part of the Janashakti group, because there was no need to confuse the market with two Janashakti names, having Janashakti Limited, Janashakti Insurance. And so this evolution continued for 30 years. Janashakti Insurance went through some major cycles of growth. In 2018, we had a major exit where we exited the non-life segment to a multinational company, very large transaction. And thereafter, we have been looking at the group, and it's part of an evolution of any group, refining the portfolio of businesses. We exited the property sector which we were in. And so now we focus on a range of financial services. So Janashakti Group has had non-life, non-bank financial services for the longest time, 15 years or more.
Yeah.
We've been in investment banking 20 years or more. Those businesses have a history of 30, 40 years.
Absolutely.
So those have existed, and they've existed as part of the group, but most people didn't make the connection because they had their own brand names.
Yeah.
And so it is. As I said, the son was more famous than the father.
Than the father.
But today, it's necessary that things change. 2 years, 3 years ago, we rebranded the parent, keeping the elements of the Janashakti name and the lamp, which is so famous.
Yeah.
But yet coining our own logo, JXG, to create a difference.
Yeah.
So that people who come to us know, okay, it's not just insurance.
Yeah.
We're still great in insurance.
Absolutely.
But we're also great in finance services or financial services, also great in investment banking, Investment banking covers stockbroking, asset management, all of that.
Multiple areas.
So we want people to be more aware of those things as well.
Fantastic, Ramesh. I'll come into JXG in the latter part of the discussion. Let's rewind about 30 years. You mentioned about the Janashakthi group has been existing for 30 years. 1978, that era, I mean, that's where things started evolving as a different organization, not only insurance. Would you like to shed some light? I mean, you know the history.
Yeah, I know it backwards.
Yeah.
I lived it. My father left his job at perhaps 40, 42. He was having a very well-paying job at Carson Cumberbatch, which was a leading agency house. He left that, became a one-man band with a secretary and a gopher, and built up from there. 1978, along with a cousin of mine, he started what is popularly known today as Kotmale. So he was actually the founder of Kotmale, even though he's known in insurance. That was a pioneering dairy venture because they pioneered cheese manufacture in this country, went into a range of products, and we actually had the widest range of dairy products. Yeah. By widest, I mean they did fresh milk, flavored milk, yogurt, ice cream, cheese, fresh cream, different types of cheese, natural cheese, processed cheese, you name it, we did it. The only thing we didn't do is milk powder. Milk powder is a commodity. Yeah. That we actually imported and distributed. So we started with that in 1978, but he was always in insurance. That was his profession. That was his line of business. And that changed in 1979 when the then government decided to start the National Insurance Corporation. And my father applied for and became one of the principal agents to distribute and process insurance policies.
Okay.
Within a rapid space of time, he became number 3. The other 2 were giants. One was Mercantile Group, which had Mercantile Credit, and they had an agency. The other was the Selinco Group, which had a long history in insurance from the 1930s. Okay. And he was the only sort of individual in this space. Right. The others were all agency houses, big names, and he was number 3. And from there, he built up. So then when there was privatization, he became a broker. He became the largest broker because Selinco became an insurer, and Mercantile Credit became part of what is today Union Assurance. So he became the number 1 broker, and number 1 by far.
Yeah.
Then in 93, 92, and beginning of 93, Ackland Insurance Services, which was still a principal agency of NIC, was also offered for sale. In the Premadasa government, it was called peopleization, not privatization.
Okay.
Peopleization. They gave 10% of the shares to the employees and the rest they sold. So we were successful in bidding and acquiring Ackland Insurance Services. Okay. When we combined the 2 businesses, we became by far the largest broker because we doubled our business, we doubled our staff, and we were a very large broking house. That gave us the platform to actually launch an insurance company, which my father styled as Janashakthi Insurance. Yeah. And that was the beginning of the Janashakthi journey. Absolutely. 1994, he was a young 64. We used we used to make jokes that Janashakthi was a young, dynamic company. We were young and he was dynamic. Extremely dynamic. Still he's 96 today, almost 96, and as dynamic as he was then. Yeah. So that's the journey. So he led the company and he led the journey. And of course, there was support from many people, key people who were with us, who journeyed with us. I must mention Trifon Mirando. I must mention N. Pararajasingham, people who served at a very high level and guided us. And that's what has brought us here today.
Absolutely. Ramesh, interestingly now, 1904, Janashakthi Life starts, and 1995, I believe, the general commenced in 1995.
Correct.
Yeah.
But we were constantly evolving. So life started in 94, general started in 95, and then as if that's not enough, we did an amalgamation of the 2 in 2000.
Right.
Then we bid for successfully and acquired the National Insurance Corporation, where my father began as a principal agent. It was a full circle, or one of the full circles, where we acquired the NIC. It was a major acquisition because at that time, we were a relatively small company. We had about 200 staff, and we took over a company which had 700 staff.
Okay.
Market share was similar, premium was similar, but size in terms of balance sheet as well as staffing was substantially bigger.
Yeah.
So it was a case of David taking over Goliath. And it got a lot of publicity. It came with a lot of challenges. But that's what we did.
Yeah.
The legislations were such, it took almost 5 years to legally amalgamate. And then 2015, another full circle, we were able to bid for and acquire the general insurance arm of AIA. AIA General, which had been coincidentally founded by my father in 1988 as Eagle.
Okay.
So another full circle where he had no shares, and then we were able to actually buy 100% of it, amalgamated it, continued to grow. We reached a large market share, leadership position in some areas. And then in 2018, we went another circle where we exited. General. And that is a way of life. It's a circle of life. You start something, you add to it, you build it up, and then maybe the time comes where you change gears and focus on other things.
I have another interesting question about your role, because I think, you were part and parcel of this evolution. I'll hold that question for a little moment. We spoke about insurance, but I know the history that, Janashakthi is not only about insurance. There were other industries that we were part of. Would you like to take us through that? I mean, for name, like agriculture, even apparel, if I'm not mistaken.
So what happened is that my father parallelly, because he was trying to help my cousin really, started Kotmale. And Kotmale grew beyond what we would have anticipated. It was a typical startup with one man, two workers, and it
backyard
grew
operation.
from there. Yeah, it was actually, their stores were in our kitchen. And from the age of 12, 13, I was involved with arranging blocks to be sent to then Lanka.We're. I worked stalls from the age of 16.
I wanted to actually ask you about your distribution on ice creams, etc. You've been selling.
Ice cream came later, but I have done deliveries at the age of 16. I've gone with a van driver to deliver stuff to hotels and things like that.
Okay.
I worked sales stalls where they do promotion stalls. I worked in supermarkets where you give samples, all of those things, because we are sort of jobless and these were great fun. So that was the other main business arm. Then there was a splattering of other things that came along the way. My father got into manufacture of Montessori equipment for export. You mentioned apparel. That came in the early 2000s, really, but we got into property through Kelsey Homes also in the early 2000s. We founded with a partner apparel. It was a finishing part, washing and finishing of apparels.
Right.
We didn't do the cutting and sewing, but we did do the rip jeans, because you have to rip that also in a very orderly manner according to a pattern. It's not just random tearing
Ripping,
the trouser.
yeah.
Then there's the washing and finishing, which every garment needs, and there's stone washers, which have special washers to get certain faded looks on the trousers and things. So all of that we did. So all sorts of things. We burnt our fingers in supermarkets. We also bought and sold businesses. Sometimes things did not work out. But as a group, I think we had a DNA of pursuing acquisitions. We also had financial creativity. And I don't think anyone else in Sri Lanka, any group in Sri Lanka has done this. We had 3 reverse takeovers. A reverse takeover is where a shell company acquires an ongoing business, and the ongoing business now becomes a listed company. So we did that with Lambretta Ceylon, which took over Kotmale, and even today Kotmale's stock code is Lamb. We did it with a company called Central Securities, which took over a whole portion of the group and was under the name Dunamis, but the stock code was CSEC.
Okay.
And today, even today, if you look at First Capital Holdings has a stock code CFVF.
Right.
Which is Central Finance Venture Fund, which we acquired. It was a listed company. Acquired, and we reversed First Capital Group into it.
Okay.
So that you actually give a dormant or a shell company or an inactive company a viable business to continue to survive and grow.
Right.
And those have done really well.
So First Capital came into the picture around 2006, if I'm correct. Okay. So Kelsey was one of the key subsidiaries of the group at one point. I mean, 2003 it was operating. The acquisition was in 2003, and latter part we divested that business. So take us through that memory, Ramesh, and the rationale.
So Kelsey has its origins as Keel's Homes under John Keel's. John Keels then sold it to the management. It became Kelsey Homes. The management ran it for a few years, and then we had an opportunity to acquire. Property was a sector we wanted to be in, and we were in some small way. But Kelsey was in a space of gated communities. They were, at that time, the pioneers in gated communities. Absolutely. There were, under certain other groups, there were ad hoc developments, but Kelsey did multiple developments ongoing, one after the other, for 30 years. It was a space we wanted to be in, and it worked very well for us. And we exited it only as recently as 2022. After the crisis broke out, it was the sector that had the most challenges.
Yeah.
Even before the crisis, even before the default, you could not buy cement, you could not buy steel. Those are the two big inputs into any construction. And so it became a challenge. And so in 2022, at the end, when we were trying to navigate the crisis and the fallout of the increasing dollar, etc., we decided from a strategic perspective to exit that. So it's an area we liked. It was an area which was in the group for 20 years. But the time comes, as I said, it's an evolution. And the time was to shed that and focus on what we could do better. And that's what we're doing now.
So strategically, you need to look at what is suited right now based on the growth trajectory as well. We'll fail if we don't mention about Magna, Primo, and Janashakthi Securities also at on the evolution calendar.
So there's Magna, which was a supermarket I mentioned. We burnt our fingers. I was CEO for a while, and then actually negotiated the sale to Laughs. So part of Laughs supermarkets today is actually the old Magna supermarkets. Primo was a pioneering venture, and it was the manufacture of synthetic leather, which is actually used in a whole host of things which you won't even think about. Sofas, shoes. We established it ground up, built a factory, ran the factory, but it wasn't a fit for us. And we found a partner who could use almost 80 to 90% of the manufacturing capacity in their own downstream manufacture.
Okay.
And therefore, it was a perfect fit for them.
Right.
It was even better for them, and I admire them for it because they signed the deal on a Monday morning, and I remember this very well because on the Sunday was what we refer to as a Minuangoda cluster.
Okay.
The second outbreak of COVID. And they signed it nevertheless.
Okay.
And then came lockdown again. So for a while, they couldn't even visit the factory. There was curfews. But the huge benefit was when there was a dollar crisis, they had a local source of supply for their raw material, which previously they imported.
Right.
So they took a risk, they honored their word, and I think they reaped the benefits of it.
Absolutely. Ramesh, Dunamis Group, Dunamis as well as Kshatriya Holdings, that operated as the group holding company, or how did that brand?
So at a point in time, and this is evolution, so we had a splattering of businesses, and all of those came under Janashakthi Limited, which is the parent company. But in 2006, middle of 2006, we split it for administrative and other reasons, split it into two groups.
Yeah, okay.
One group was run by my sister Manjula, who's now on the Janashakthi Limited board, and my late brother Dinesh. And they took over a splattering of non-financial services businesses.
Okay.
So they took over Kelsey, they took over Kotmale, they took over whatever else that came that way.
Okay.
And Janashakthi Limited focused on
The insurance.
Janashakthi Insurance, and we had a finance company by the name of Janashakthi Finance and Investments.
Yeah.
And Janashakthi focused on the
Financial.
big ticket financial brand. First Capital was a subsequent acquisition.
Okay.
So you mentioned Dunamis and Kshatriya, they're one and the same.
Okay.
They were branded as Kshatriya. 3 years down the line, they rebranded as Dunamis. That's all it was.
Okay.
And they functioned independently for all intents and purposes. My sister Manjula served on the Janashakthi Insurance Board as well. So there was that relationship and collaboration. And I was, as I told you, CEO for the supermarkets, and I was CEO for Kotmale because the CEO had left, and until we brought in a new CEO. So there was collaboration in that way, but we functioned separately.
Yeah.
Until 2018, when we felt in the evolution of the group, we brought it back together.
Okay.
And that brought First Capital into the Janashakthi umbrella as well.
Absolutely. We'll speak about the recent history, Ramesh. Now, interestingly, selling ice cream off the van to multiple roles. My brief history with you was you were marketing director when I was in Janashakthi Insurance. Talk us through your different roles in the organization, now being the group managing director and the CEO.
So I think I'm a sort of split personality, Gamika, because professionally I'm a dull, boring accountant. The reality is I'm an exciting marketer.
Absolutely.
So I was director marketing of Janashakthi Insurance from 1994. I was only 24. I had an idea every minute. wanted to do things differently, opened 92 branches in about 5 months.
Yeah.
Which was then, and I think even today Janashakthi Life have 78 branches.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, look, in 94, 95,
more, yeah.
I opened 92 branches.
Yeah.
Why are we having less than what we had in 94?
Yeah.
That is one of the things. The second is from day zero, in fact, day -1, I was involved with all manner of advertising and communications. So even the first vacancy ad, I was a part of looking at and gathered marketing. From that time, I had guidance and input from Erdly Pereira, and our marketing manager, Mohan Pereira, was a very experienced guy. And I learned from them. I learned on the job, but I also gave leadership while learning. So the branch network was me pushing.
Yeah.
Some of the creative stuff we did in advertising was me pushing. And we did things differently because we had limited budgets. I'd learned from Richard Branson himself. You know, Richard Branson didn't have budgets. No, what does he do? He gets on a hot air balloon, says he's crossing the Atlantic. Then I think he switches off his comms, and then they say he's lost headlines in the papers, headline news, Richard Branson lost. 2 days later, he switches on, found again, and he got free publicity.
Yeah.
He got great publicity that way. And so if you remember, it was slightly before your time, but we sponsored India-Sri Lanka series.
Yeah.
And what did we do? And in Mohan Pereira, I had an able guy who takes these crazy ideas and runs. We contacted the Air Force and got them to come in a helicopter and got a airman to come down a ladder carrying the trophy. He got us 10 minutes of airtime on Rupavahini.
Yeah, fantastic.
It made the nighttime news.
Absolutely.
And that's the sort of excitement we try to create. So I came from a finance background. I was, at a point, finance director of Kotmale. As part of my job role, I always wore multiple hats. And then the marketing director of Kotmale decided to migrate. And I was marketing director as well. So you can imagine when it came to discussing budgets, I have to sit on one side of the table and present it to the finance director, then go around the other side and try to debate why we can't spend so much money. But it actually worked well. I think for the only time in any company's history, finance and marketing were aligned.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been great. So Kotmale, so we bought the ice cream company. It was actually Dasa Prakash Ice Cream.
Right.
And it's amazing that we were able to go and discuss the matter and take over this company. We took it over with no plan. We had no space.
Okay.
So we had to put the ice cream manufacturing in an office space in Union Place.
Right, okay.
And at the front, we put up a little ice cream stall.
Right.
And, they had, before Baskin-Robbins and all these, they had 30-odd flavors of ice cream.
Wow, okay.
So we opened an ice cream parlor there, and believe it or not, they could not cope. Union Place would have a queue because it was new.
Yeah.
Buying ice cream flavors like this was completely new because the market took only vanilla and chocolate.
Vanilla chocolate, that's
A wee bit of strawberry.
Yeah.
And this sort of transformed the market. We introduced through that plastic containers, Now it's become standard. But at that time, people bought ice cream in polythene bags in a Regifoam box.
Yeah.
We transformed the market.
Okay.
And so we did things like that. We tried to be pioneers in whatever area we stepped into.
Absolutely. I think, if we have to talk about some of those innovations, the first that we did, Janashakthi, throughout the history, we'll have to have another episode to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Because the tallest trophy to, even safety net is a product
The trophy was taller than Mahela.
Taller than, I think,
Tony Gregg.
Tony Gregg as well. We have the pictures. So, elephant coming in for the procession of the cricket trophy, safety net on Janashakthi. So there's so many. I will leave that to another day. Ramesh, so throughout the history, so that we have established the fact that the Janashakthi group has been there in existence for 30 years. It's not just Janashakthi group came in suddenly off the shelf. No, it has been operating in a silent manner. And some of them are very rational decisions in terms of strategically how you aligned and navigate through. Now that we have come to a point that now it's clearly focused on where Janashakthi Group is heading, can you explain a little bit about the rationales of divestment, acquisitions, and for the current position?
So 2018, 2019 was a year of change. 2018, we exited general insurance, which was a big step. And then we brought the Dunamis Group back under the umbrella of Janashakthi Limited. 2019, we amalgamated the two. And so then we had a spread of businesses. We had 4 listed companies, and we could focus on each of these as sectors or pillars. Unfortunately, as I told you, we decided to exit the property sector. We still hold property, but we exited the property development sector, and we're focusing on financial services. But there's so much we can do in financial services. Even within the financial services space, First Capital Equities is an acquisition. We started asset management ground up. We acquired what was then Orient Finance and got into the NBFI space. Then under the bank consolidation, we acquired Bartlett Finance, and again we did a reverse takeover. So we did creative stuff. We also did aggressive stuff. Right now, for the last few years, we mapped out a plan. So what's happening today is not an accident. This is a plan from 2020, 2021. We also retained a consultant who is now just completely independently. He's now the group chairman, but he was also an expert in family business, so he engaged with us. The family was evolving. We needed to have a pathway for next gen to enter. And we don't believe in people parachuting in and getting positions, so we developed a training program for next gen. We also had to then map out what's our own 5-year, 10-year plan as a family and as shareholders. And so everything that's happening today is coming from that plan. It's not random. There's nothing random. It's completely according to a plan. Even the fact that I'm group CEO is according to that plan. Because previously I was always an executive director, and the business was run by my older brother Prakash, who is still executive deputy chairman of Janashakthi Insurance. But within the framework of the group, I am the group CEO. And part of that journey was creating this JXG brand, putting it out there, creating shared services, providing shared services to the subsidiaries in a way that is effective, and in fact creating capital, raising capital, all of those things. And that plan is being unfolded. Even today we're looking at broad-basing our capital and enhancing our financial strength, building the balance sheet. The business units have been functioning very well. They have been functioning very well. But there's more we can do in this space. There's mergers and acquisitions we can do. We'd like to do. We've established an M&A team just to look at it, because it's so much a part of our DNA.
So we have now clearly identified our space as a financial conglomerate, and that's the way forward. Now it leads into my next question, and the exciting question, and no other person could answer this in a better way. JXG, a lot of people ask, what is JXG? Why JXG? And what is this X about? Here's a full toss view.
Full toss. No, the reality is X is exciting, right? And X lends itself to so many nice words such as exponential growth, which we like to show. We want to be an exceptional workplace. We want to be an exciting workplace. Some of the things we do with our staff is absolutely extraordinary. It's not something that others do. In fact, we want to be a leader always, not to be a follower. And some of the stuff we do has been really good. So we've gone from a 70-something score on GPTW to 97. And I'm asking, what happened to that 3%? Because we've set an aim, we want to be in the top 40 in Sri Lanka first, and then we want to be number one, great place to work. That is our stated objective. That's our goal. We don't want to be second best. And that, I think, is part of the DNA of the company. We want to play hard, we want to win. You come from a sporting background, wrong school, but you come from a sport. I couldn't resist that one. But sports makes you want to win. You're not just simply playing. You want to win with your values. You want to win in the right way. And so we are built and founded on strong values of integrity, but also the value of innovation, because we've always been innovative. Value of collaboration when you have different business units. Value of respect. Because on the sports field, you also learn to respect each other. You win or lose, you show respect. And these are things that we have brought to the workplace, to the equation. Performance, absolutely important. We reward performance. And we are performance driven in many ways. Every person has KPIs, so it's fun. We want them to enjoy themselves. But we also want them to deliver. And that's the sort of culture we're building over the last 3 or 4 years.
Ramesh, so re-emphasizing the fact that the group has been existing for 30 years and being silent. Now, suddenly in 2021, 2022 era, yeah, we decided to bring the JXG brand out so that JXG also creates the personality positioning as a financial conglomerate apart from their subsidiaries being the super brands on their own sphere. Can you talk us about the rationale behind JXG being brought in as a brand?
Several reasons. One is you say Janashakthi and everyone thinks, insurance, neither. And that could be a disadvantage when you're trying to recruit investment bankers or when you're trying to attract talent into a NBFI. So for that reason, we needed to create a sort of differentiation. And so we could have gone with Janashakthi Group, but then the abbreviation JG is also what existed previously for Janashakthi General. And then we inserted the X to cause some excitement. It's also different.
Different, yeah.
People ask that question, why is there an X in the middle?
So that's also a good opportunity to have that conversation. No? Yeah,
Absolutely. But we've kept the lamp.
Yeah.
The values are pretty much the same because those are the values that the group has been built on. But how has it changed us now? It makes the business units, even if they're non-insurance, to feel part of a greater organization. It gives them some prominence, it gives them that association. Each of the business units now say a Janashakthi Group company.
Yeah.
Because we are a group. It's helped us to attract talent. Because talent now knows, my gosh, we only thought of insurance because insurance is a 400, 500-year-old industry, not as exciting as investment banking or finance. And so sometimes we could not attract and retain staff. Now we're attracting top talent. The number of people who send CVs cold saying, is there an opportunity? Or I'd really like to work for your organization. I've seen what you all do. That's the sort of brand image we want in people's mind. We want share of mind.
Absolutely.
And that share of mind should transcend insurance. It should create that thing. Janashakthi is a group that's moving. It's shaking up the industry. Our vision is breaking barriers and forging futures. So we want people to realize that we're breaking barriers. And there are strategies we have for that.
Yeah.
And we want to create better futures for every Sri Lankan. So we're pitching ourselves at a national level. And we're pitching ourselves as a really forward-looking company that can go places.
You actually answered my next question about your vision to the organization. I think just to add some thoughts to what you said about breaking barriers, forging futures, we will continue to reimagine finances. We want to create an inclusive society that, financially, we want all Sri Lankans to be part of this future. Would you like to talk us through briefly about your direction for the future with JXG?
So let me first talk about Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a country that has had segregation in every area. It was segregation based on language, it was segregation based on caste, it was segregation based on religion, it is segregation based on sex, it's segregation based on age, and so on and so forth. What nobody talks about is segregation based on financial well-being or finances. There are those who prosper and who are partaking in the growing economy, and there are some who are left behind. And I think that if they had the opportunity, just as much as a child coming from lesser circumstances, if given the opportunity, could study and be as good as you, me, or anyone else, I think financially also, if you take entrepreneurs, many entrepreneurs, and this goes back to Adam Smith and the factors of production, one of the key factors was capital. And the lack of capital, today you say, capital is not a problem. It's not a problem for you. It's not a problem for me. But capital is still a problem for a portion of society. There's no credit rating, there's no credit score, there's no pay slips to show ability to repay. They may have the finances, but they're not educated in that creditworthiness area to be able to access capital. And therefore, I think there is an automatic segregation that takes place. If you look at most of the banks, their deposit bases come from the rural areas because people save money, and they lend to the urban areas. They're taking money from the rural areas and they're not lending back to the rural areas. And therefore, there is a disparity. If you look at the GDP of the country, the regional sources, it's Western province first, then there's a little bit more. And the poorer areas are easily identified. And I think there is space. Even when we started insurance, life insurance, our payoff line, and you might remember this, was let us light the lamp of insurance in every home. In actual fact, life insurance is more important for the poorer household than the wealthier household.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a poorer household where they will be destitute if the breadwinner dies. And so that has been part of that vision of breaking barriers, getting this protection to the poorest of the poor who actually need it the most. What should come and what will come in our strategy is also to get finances to the less privileged, where they can apply it and transform not just their own families, they can transform communities. Absolutely. And this is what will happen, and that's the vision that we have for the future.
Absolutely. Ramesh, one before the final question. What's in store for JXG in the future?
Big things. Big things.
You want to hold it at that? Or
No, I don't want to hold it at that. If there wasn't something exciting in the future, I won't get out of bed.
Okay.
I need a little action, right? I told you, I masquerade as an accountant. Actually, I'm an exciting marketer. I want to drive a campaign. I want to set some goals which are exciting to pursue.
Challenging as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. If we were coming in and delivering 15% growth, as I said, I won't get out of bed. So exponential growth. I want to have M&A activity. I want to grow this group, and that's the mandate I have from the board, which is backing us on this. So what does that involve? It involves strengthening the bench. And we've been strengthening the bench right across the business units.
The group,
Getting in quality people who can deliver. I use cricketing parlance. We don't want third division players. We want first division players. Yeah. So that when we're playing first division, we're playing at a competitive level, not struggling to be there.
Yeah.
The second, we need the capital structures and the balance sheet. So we're not a small group. Our total asset is some 170 billion or something like that. It's not small. But to go on this acquisition trail, you need to strengthen your balance sheet further, manage your gearing ratios and such things, which is what we're doing. We've been fixing that for the last 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
And in the next 2 or 3 months, you'll see some excitement on that score.
Yeah.
We want to do that so that we have the strength for the next phase of growth. We've spoken previously, and it was disrupted because of the economic crisis, regional expansion. Because we want to. We have a bouquet of products, almost every financial service other than retail banking. And we want to take that to lesser developed countries where we can actually establish something. We bring something to the table. In terms of where we would like to be in the Sri Lankan landscape, and I have no shyness in saying this, we want to be in the top 10.
Okay.
That's a goal I think we should run for. Otherwise, as I said, no need to get up in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this journey is with that goal in mind. And this journey started, as I said, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and we are on that journey. Yes, we lost a year because of the economic crisis.
But the journey never stops.
Journey never stopped.
So Ramesh, one final delivery on the power play. Janashakthi, is it only insurance?
Never only insurance. We are in the financial conglomerate space. People know insurance. They're getting to know NBFI. They already know some of our other brands, and we're going to be big in this space. As I said, we're looking at regional expansion. We're looking at M&A activity here. In 5 years' time, you won't recognize Janashakthi.
Yeah. Fantastic, Ramesh. With that, we'll wrap up the conversation. I wish the entire team at JXG, you and the entire team at JXG, for an exciting future with exponential growth and a lot of things to be look forward to. Thank you very much for joining the podcast today.
Thank you, Gamika. Lovely to be here.
So, folks, that's a wrap for today. An exciting journey awaits. Janashakthi is not only insurance. Janashakthi is much more than that. JXG is being a very, very focused player in terms of the financial conglomerate sphere and looking at expansion in the future. With that, signing off, Gamika De Silva for JXG Spotlight.